I am the widowed sister-in-law of Orion. Just as I was about to retire after finally bringing him up, bullet comments suddenly appeared in front of my eyes. Run. Little sister. Today, pedin so feldland sashen. The male lead will pretend to be drunk and possess you forcefully. The two of them will use your guilt to make you work like a slave for a lifetime. You won't even have a peaceful death even if you die. I heard that this was planned by the male lead and the female lead? Just to not lose the free labor in the family? Those in front. Don't spoil the plot. I still want to see the child born by the female supporting character being at the back and call of the child of the male and female leads for a lifetime. This is the end of the vicious female supporting character. Little sister. Don't drink that glass of wine. Please. I was at a loss. Orion came towards me with his new wife, holding wine glasses in their hands. Here they come. Here they come. The male and female leads with wine glasses are here. The female supporting character will be with the male lead tonight. Don't spoil the plot. I haven't read the later part yet. I watched the two of them standing in front of me. And watched the bullet comments flashing by rapidly. I stared at them for a while. And then I knew. It turned out that Orion would. Me today. On his wedding night. Then he and I would be caught in bed by his new wife. Cinder. Orion would also say that I drank too much and couldn't resist the loneliness. So I pounced on him while he was taking a shower and forced myself on him. Orion was afraid that Cinder would find out about this. So he could only let me do as I pleased. And I, because I drank the wine handed to me by Orion before, lost my consciousness and thought that I was really so lonely that I had a relationship with my brother-in-law whom I had brought up with my own hands. Overwhelmed with shame and indignation, I wanted to throw myself into the well in the courtyard. It was Cinder and Orion who held me back firmly and cried, saying that the matter was over and they would never spread it. I survived with a feeling of guilt. And with a mentality of atonement. I almost took on all the housework in the family. And under the circumstance that Orion repeatedly told me that we were sorry to Cinder, I voluntarily gave my regular employment quota in the cotton factory to Cinder. I even took care of all the work in the fields. But who knew that I actually got pregnant that time? I originally wanted to have an abortion secretly. But Cinder said that this was a life. And it was also Orion's child. How could I kill Orion's child? I said that I could just give birth to the child secretly, and then say that it was a foundling. As long as I didn't go out, no one would know. While I was hesitating, my belly also started to show. Finally, hadn't fulfilled my sorry. One day, I was caught in the act by the people that Cinder deliberately brought back. After that, everyone said that I was promiscuous and shameless. Just like that, I gave birth to a son. During the confinement period, Cinder also got pregnant. I not only had to wash the clothes for the whole family and cook, but also serve Cinder who had just gotten pregnant. She didn't want to eat this and that, so I had to serve her with different dishes every day. Later, our children grew up. My child was always called a bastard. He had no friends and could only follow their children submissively every day. Later, Cinder's child ran over someone with a car. And they actually asked my child to take the blame. I didn't want to. And Cinder actually said that I owed her. She said that since I had slept with her man, I should use my child to pay off the debt. I should work like a slave for a lifetime to pay off this debt. Only then did my son know that he, who had been called a bastard for more than 10 years, was actually the evil result of me and his uncle. He went crazy immediately. I couldn't bear the blow and threw myself into the river. After I died, the two of them even said that I was not sensible. Because their daughter-in-law was about to give birth. And if I was gone, who would take care of the child? Who would serve their daughter-in-law during the confinement period? But in the end, the two of them were quite generous and said forget it. When a person died, the debt was cleared. The sins I had committed before could be repaid to them in the next life. After reading the bullet comments, I was so angry that I felt like going crazy and I wanted to kill this damn couple. What the hell is all this? Sister-in-law? I came back to my senses and saw Orion and Cinder holding wine glasses and looking at me. Even the relatives and friends beside them were cheering. Sister-in-law of the Orion family. Drink up quickly. Orion was brought up by you. Your parents-in-law and husband are no longer here. Aren't you just like his mother? They should toast you with this glass of wine. Yes, I was ugly too. Yes. Take it quickly. Some people also said. I think the expression of the sister-in-law of the Orion family is not right. Could it be that she doesn't like the newly married sister-in-law? Oh. You know. It's really possible. Maybe. You understand. The widowed sister-in-law and the brother-in-law. TSK. The people who were persuading me with different thoughts didn't notice the faint excitement and anger in Cinder's eyes at all. After reading the bullet comments, I of course understood. She was excited because after today, my job would belong to her. The anger came from the fact that on her wedding night, her husband was going to be with another woman. She must be feeling unwilling in her heart at this moment, right? Under the gaze of everyone, I smiled and took the wine glasses from the two of them. Then I poured the 2 glasses of wine in a straight line and spilled them onto the ground. Huh? What's going on? Why isn't the female supporting character following the plot? Shouldn't she drink the wine gratifying line now and then be? Yes, divedavo sai. Yes. How can I watch the following part? Don't tell me the plot is going to be changed? No. I want to see the female supporting character being tortured. I've even prepared the tissues. Looking at the spilled wine, Cinder's eyes were instantly filled with tears. Sister-in-law? Don't you like me? I just think it's not easy for you to bring up Orion. And I'm also very grateful to you. Cinder didn't finish her words. But the people present looked at me with meaningful eyes. It seemed that I really had ulterior motives. Even Orion looked at me in a dilemma. Sister-in-law, I know you don't like Cinder. But since Cinder and I are already married, I will definitely not let anyone bully her. Even you. Sister-in-law. Can't do that. Orion's words caused an uproar at the scene. That wasn't enough. Orion filled the 2 glasses again. And the 2 of them handed the wine glasses in their hands to me again. It seemed that they must make me drink these 2 glasses of wine. With those strange text prompts. Only a fool would drink this. I poured the wine in the glasses onto the ground again. Looking at the stunned Orion and Cinder, I smiled and said, although I brought up Orion, I'm just his sister-in-law after all. These 2 glasses of wine today should be drunk by Orion's parents. After that, I filled the glasses with wine again and spilled them onto the ground once more. Orion's brother even came to me in my dream last night and said that Orion has gotten married. I'm afraid there will be no place for me in this family in the future. I wiped away my tears. When everyone saw that something was wrong, they started to persuade me again. They said that Orion definitely wasn't the kind of heartless person. Orion and Cinder had no choice but to show their loyalty as well. I snorted coldly and watched them perform. After everyone left, I massaged my waist and was about to go back to my room. Looking at the mess in the courtyard, Cinder called out to me, Sister-in-law. Look, the room hasn't been cleaned yet. I turned around and smiled. It wasn't easy for me to bring up Orion. Now, it's time for me to enjoy myself. Now that you've married into the family. From now on, you should take over this family. Cinder. Clean up early. I'm a light sleeper. If there's any noise later, I won't be able to fall asleep. I massaged my back and slowly returned to my room. In the book, they could take advantage of my kindness and guilt to make me endure and given for a lifetime. Now, I can naturally use my kindness of bringing up Orion to morally kidnap them. But after returning to my room, I didn't dare to sleep. Before, they wanted to make me lose consciousness with that glass of wine. Maybe they would try something else since they didn't succeed. While I was sitting there thinking of a way, there was a knock on the door. I paused for a moment, and then said, Who is it? Sister-in-law. I saw that you didn't eat much just now. I brought you a bowl of egg noodles. Why don't you eat something before going to bed? I sighed. Well, what's coming will come. I can't prevent it. I opened the door and saw Cinder standing outside with a bowl in her hand. I took the bowl of rice but didn't let her in. Okay. Go to bed early. I'll take the bowl to the kitchen myself after I finish eating. Cinder originally wanted to come in, but she could only nod when she heard me say that. Eat quickly over there, or it will get cold later. I nodded inferiorly and closed the door. Great. The plot is finally going back on track. I just saw the female lead put something in the bowl. Look, Wuck. Look. The female lead has already pulled the male lead and started. She said she has to be satisfied before she can come over. TSK. I suddenly think the male lead is dirty. At least in the original book. The male lead's first time was with the female supporting character. Now, it's all messed up. I glanced at the words floating in front of me and almost vomited. What's wrong with those two? They don't want to live a good life and have to do this. I found a pillowcase. Poured all the eggs and noodles in the bowl into it. And then wrapped it up and stuffed it under the bed. After a while, I heard another knock on the door. When I opened it, it was Cinder. Looking at the empty bowl in my hand, her eyes lit up. Sister-in-law? Have you finished eating? I wiped my mouth and stuffed the bowl into her hand. Take it back. I'm going to the outhouse. The outhouse was at the very edge of the courtyard. And I had to pass the kitchen when I walked by. I saw a wine pot on the stove. Upon closer inspection, there were some residual white powder on the lid. So I poured a glass of wine and took it back to my room. Sure enough, not long after I returned to my room, I heard another knock on the door. I pretended to be groggy and asked, "Who is it?" "Sister-in-law. Are you asleep?" "I'm here to get a quilt. Cinder said she's a bit cold." I sneered and opened the door. Sure enough, I saw Orion standing outside. "Sister-in-law. I'm sorry to disturb you so late." I stared at Orion fixedly. I didn't expect that the child I had taken care of for several years would grow up to be a devil. Orion felt a bit guilty under my gaze. "Sister-in-law." I took a step back and stood aside. "Come in." I pointed to the door of the cabinet by the bed. "The quilt is in there. You can get it yourself." As soon as Orion bent down, I picked up the stick in my hand and hit him hard on the head. Orion didn't even groan and fell straight onto the bed. I pried open Orion's mouth and poured all the spiked wine I brought back from the kitchen into his mouth. Before climbing out of the window, I thought for a moment. Then went back to the kitchen and fed the remaining pot of wine to the pig. The pig at home wasn't very big, but it still weighed a good 100 or so pounds. A whole pot of wine was surely enough to drug this pig. I went back again, helped Orion out, and threw him into the pigsty. I averted my eyes, pulled down his pants, and arranged him in a pose as if he was hugging the big white pig. Then, let out a low sorry. Feeling a bit sorry, I patted the big white pig. "Sorry. You've been wronged. I'll definitely feed you more pig food tomorrow." When I left home, I found that Cinder's room was quiet. I guessed that she was tired earlier and was now sound asleep. That night, I went to my good friend Blossom's house at the village entrance and stayed there for the night, unexpectedly. Before I even got up the next day, Blossom's mother dragged me out of the bed. "Hurry up. Something has happened at your home." I thought that Orion sleeping in the pigsty with his pants off had been discovered. But it turned out not to be the case. "Hurry. Two policemen outside said they're looking for you." I was dazed. I pulled out of the courtyard, only to see Cinder standing together with the two policemen. As soon as she saw me, she rushed over. "Damn bitch. Where's Orion? Where is Orion?" "Me. Tell me. I didn't see Orion when I woke up this morning. And you were gone too. Tell me. What did you to do?" After saying that, she turned to the two policemen. "Comrades of the police. This bitch must have hidden Orion. She's stealing my man. She won't die a good death. You must drown her in the pond." I was secretly delighted, knowing that she probably hadn't found out that Orion was in the pigsty yet, and because she knew that Orion had gone to my room yesterday. She had preconceived the idea that there was something going on between me and Orion. That's why she couldn't wait to call the police early in the morning, trying to get rid of me. How could I endure this grievance? I covered my face and started crying. Oh, I don't want to live anymore. Last night, considering that you two were a newlywed couple, I thought it wasn't appropriate for me to stay at home. So I came to Blossom's house. I didn't expect you to pour dirty water on me like this. I know you can't tolerate me anymore. Fine, heading till fell wide sigh. You want to drown me in the pond, right? You don't need to do it. I'll just die and end it all." After saying that, I rushed towards a nearby pillar. The two policemen were greatly alarmed. And Blossom was also standing beside me. Before I could reach the pillar, I was tightly held back by the crowd. Blossom was furious. Comrades of the police. My family can all testify. Solace came to my place last night. My whole family can testify to this. Cinder's face turned alternately green and white. She really didn't expect that I would try to commit suicide without saying a word. Her mouth moved. But she didn't dare to say anything more. All right. You said that your husband wasn't there when you woke up this morning. Could he have gone to the fields or gone out? The policeman frowned and looked at Cinder. Cinder really wasn't sure. The policeman's face looked a bit unpleasant. You didn't see him in the morning. So you immediately went to your sister-in-law's room to look for him? Just because your sister-in-law wasn't there either. You thought something was going on between them? You really are. The policeman shook his head. Well, let's go back to your home first and take a look. If he's really not there, we'll talk about it later. Cinder had no choice but to nod. So a group of people marched towards the house in a mighty procession. On the way, some villagers saw us and curiously followed along. As soon as they heard that the police had come because Cinder had called them to catch an adulterer, they all got excited. Soon we arrived at the doorstep. After Cinder opened the door, the house was quiet. There was no one in the courtyard, the house, or the kitchen. Seeing that there was no one at home, Cinder was secretly delighted. She turned to look at me and said, "Sister-in-law, it's really not that I'm wronging you, but I saw Orion go to your room last night. I know that it's understandable for you to feel lonely after all these years, since you don't have a man by your side. But Orion was brought up by you. How could you have such thoughts about Orion? Tell me, how am I supposed to live in the future?" Cinder's words seemed pitiful, but her voice wasn't soft. The villagers who had squeezed in or were leaning on the courtyard wall all visibly got excited. I was silent for a moment before I said, "It seems that I really can't stay in this house anymore." I turned to look at the two policemen. If I can prove my innocence with my brother-in-law, can I sue her? I pointed at Cinder. She's spreading rumors about me and ruining my reputation. Can I sue her? The older policeman looked at Cinder sternly, and then glanced at everyone present. You're really being wronged. You can not only ask the other party to apologize publicly, but the person who spreads rumors about you will also be detained for 7 days. I nodded, and then looked at Cinder. You just got married yesterday. But you've repeatedly said that there's an affair between me and Orion. And you've repeatedly spread rumors and caused trouble in public. I don't know why you're treating me like this. But from now on, in this house, either I'm here or you are. We can't both stay. Cinder's face turned alternately green and white. Just as she was about to say something, she suddenly saw a villager leaning on the courtyard wall, suddenly shout excitedly, "Quick! Look! Quick! Hurry up!" The villager who was speaking was so excited that he could hardly speak clearly. Everyone was confused and looked in the direction he was pointing. They saw a man in the pigsty slowly stand up. The most hilarious thing was that the man wasn't wearing any pants. His white buttocks were exposed right in front of everyone. Holy crap! What did I just see? Is this something that I, as an honored member, can watch? Yeah. Why did he suddenly expose himself? I need to wash my eyes. It's so funny. He tried to scheme against others, but ended up being socially embarrassed. Right? At this moment, Orion's mind was still in a daze. He heard some movement behind him, so he subconsciously turned around. Unexpectedly, he saw a large group of people standing in the courtyard. When he took a closer look, besides the policeman, there were also his sister-in-law and his wife. Of course, there were more villagers who were extremely excited. "Oh, this is so embarrassing. Quick, look. Close your eyes. You'll get a sty if you look." The young wives and girls who reacted turned their heads away one by one. But there were also some women in their 40s and 50s who giggled, "Orion, I didn't expect that despite your tall and strong build. You're not that good." You don't understand. It hasn't risen yet. It'll be big when it rises. Ouch. Stop talking. It's so embarrassing. Men and women started teasing him openly. Only then did Orion look down and realize that he wasn't wearing pants. He let out a scream. turned around, and tightly covered his lower body. But when he turned around, his white buttocks were exposed again. And the laughter of the crowd became even louder. Orion was so ashamed and indignant that he ran back into the house, covering both the front and the back. Cinder then retracted her gaze with a complicated expression. And then subconsciously looked at me. What's going on? He didn't go to your room. Before she could finish her sentence, I stepped forward and slapped her hard. Cinder was furious. Are you crazy? How dare you hit me? I slapped her again with my backhand. Cinder went crazy and rushed up to hit me. Solace, I think you've got a lot of nerve. How dare you hit me? I stepped forward to meet her, grabbed her hair tightly, and hit her while saying, You? Who do you think you are? Huh? You bitch. You just got married and you dare to pour dirty water on me again and again. Thinking of my miserable life in the book, I am dying to tear Orion and Cinder into pieces. After I held Cinder down and hit her a few times, the policeman who had reacted finally rushed up and pulled us apart firmly. I broke free from the policeman's hands and said seriously, Comrades of the police, I want to report a case. It was Orion who was drunk and mistook the pig in the pigsty for the bride. But Cinder keeps pestering me again and again. I want to report this to the police. Cinder was still taken away by the police. After all, this incident caused quite a stir. And I even attempted suicide in front of the police. Now it's confirmed that this was just a new long incident. But the fact that Cinder slandered me several times is undeniable. After Cinder was taken away, I went to the village chief. What? You want to divide the family? The village chief looked at me in disbelief. I nodded. I'm sure you've heard about what happened today. Village chief. She's only been married for a day. But she's been putting the blame on me again and again. If everyone hadn't seen with their own eyes today that Orion came out of the pigsty with his butt bare, I wouldn't be able to clear my name even if I had 1,000 mouths. I knew that since I had only married into Orion's family, it would be difficult for me to get the house and the land, but I refused to give in. In the book, they not only schemed against me, but also took away my job, and even schemed against me for my whole life. How could I let them off so easily? Looking at the hesitant village chief, I cried. The house we're living in now was built with the money my husband paid for. You all know that. Now that Orion is married and has his own family, I think I, as his widowed sister-in-law, can finally step back. I want them to move out today. As for the land at home, we'll divide it equally. From now on, I'll have nothing to do with Orion's family. Sister-in-law. As soon as I finished speaking, I saw Orion come in from outside. He looked at me and the village chief, and suddenly knelt down with a thud. He looked at me sincerely. Sister-in-law, I know I was wrong. Cinder is young and doesn't understand things. She thought that your kindness to me was out of some ulterior motive. I'll scold her. She won't dare to do it again. Sister-in-law, please. Please be merciful and let Cinder come back. Okay? I looked at the man kneeling in front of me with cold eyes. When I married Orion's elder brother, I was 16 years old. Later, his elder brother died in an accident. I was 17 that year. And Orion was 12. Everyone told me to find another man to marry. That my life was still long. At that time, whenever Orion heard someone advising me like this, he would always look at me with a terrified expression. He was so afraid that I would leave him. So he became even more obedient than before. He took the initiative to do the work at home and almost took care of all the household chores. I told him not to think too much. That I wouldn't leave. Even if I were to leave, I would wait until he got married. I would always let him go to those good occasions like attending banquets. A half-grown child has a big appetite. Every time he goes to a banquet, he can eat to his heart's content. He would even secretly put some meat in a bag and bring it back to me after coming back from a banquet. Sister-in-law, I picked these as soon as the dishes were served. They're not dirty. You eat them. Orion used his innocent heart to keep me here. I always thought that when he grew a little older. A little bit older. Later, I thought that after he got married, I could start my new life. In this way, I can be considered to have lived up to my husband and the status of an elder sister-in-law. Orion in the book is just a name. But to me, He was the company for 7 years. Vivid, real days full of emotions. So I've always wondered why he would treat me like this. Orion. This family must be divided. You've grown up. And I've fulfilled my obligations. I smiled. If you don't want to divide the family, is it because you want me to support you and your wife like before? My words made Orion's face change. He stammered. Sister-in-law. I didn't mean that. I looked at Orion with a cold face. You're just my husband's younger brother. I think I've been more than kind to you. If you think that just because I raised you for 7 years, the price is that I have to support you, your children, and even your grandchildren for the rest of my life, then I'll tell you, it's impossible. You've grown up and should have the responsibility of a man, right? My words made Orion lower his head in shame. I turned to the village head and said, Village head, I want to get this matter done today. Otherwise, when his wife comes back, I'm afraid there will be more trouble. I've already had a feud with her. Dividing the family is the best choice for both of us. This matter really caused quite a stir today. Finally, the village had finished smoking the cigarette in his mouth. He asked Orion, Do you agree to the division of the family? Orion glanced at me. Seeing that I was just cold and indifferent, he could only grit his teeth and nod. The village head was silent for a while before he said, Solace. You can divide the family. But it can't be divided as you said. I sneered. This is the Orion family village. And the village head also has the surname Liu. Naturally. He won't just watch me, a woman, having fulfilled my fashion, take away the things of the Orion family. Fortunately, I already had other plans in mind. So I wasn't surprised. Seeing that I didn't speak, the village head said again. Although the house in your family was built by your husband, you didn't lead a son or daughter for the Orion family. You will probably get married again in the future. So, the village head shook his head. You can't have all the house and the land. When Orion heard that neither the house nor the land would be given to me, he heaved a sigh of relief. He even looked at me with a bit of pity. I sneered. The village head continued. But we old folks have seen how you treated Orion over the years. Well, I won't divide the land for you. You can have half of the house. If you don't want to live with Orion, I can ask Orion to compensate you with money. If you're willing, I'll have someone build a wall in the middle of your house overnight to divide it into 2 parts. How about that? Of course. It's not good. The house was built by my husband. But I can only have half of it. The land in the family clearly belongs to the 2 brothers. But now it can only be given to Orion. And now they're asking me how I feel about it? But I also know that this is the way of the world nowadays. My husband is gone. And without someone to back me up, I naturally have to do as the village says. Fortunately, having fulfilled Pigsty, I have a backup plan. I'll get a sum of money first. I pretended to hesitate for a while before nodding. Right then, in the presence of the village head and 2 elders of the clan, I gave up that house and the land and received 300 yuan. That night, I moved to the dormitory in the factory. When I went back to pack my things, Blossom and her parents accompanied me. I didn't have many things actually. Over the years, I had to raise Orion and cover his tuition fees. In fact, I didn't save much money. My clothes were mended over and over again and had been worn for 3 years after 3 years. When I had packed my clothes and bedding and opened the door, I saw Orion standing outside. Excuse me. I frowned as I looked at Orion. He paused for a moment before taking a step to the side, just thinking about what the bullet comments said. That I would have been raped by this person yesterday. I felt so disgusted that I almost vomited up my last night's meal. I don't know if there was something wrong with my education, or if he was born with such bad genes in his bones. After all, I supported him and even helped him marry a wife. But this person did something worse than a beast just to make me stay and work like a slave for them. Holding back my anger and with a cold face, I was just about to leave when Orion said again, Sister-in-law. I didn't want to pay attention to him at first. But he stopped me again. Sister-in-law. I know it's useless for me to say anything now, but I really didn't know that Cinder treated you like that. I slapped Orion hard in the face. Sister-in-law. Orion looked at me in disbelief. I sneered and left there carrying the suitcase. Orion had no idea about the steams between him and Cinder. I had known about them for a long time. I settled down in the workers' dormitory of the cotton factory. Unexpectedly, a few days later, I was stopped at the entrance of the cotton factory. It was Cinder. In full view of everyone. She actually knelt down straight. Cinder, who had been locked up for a few days, looked very haggard. Her pale face was covered with tears. Sister-in-law, I know I was wrong. I'm narrow-minded. And I shouldn't have offended you. Please come back with me? You don't know that Orion said he wants to divorce me. He said that just because I made you angry that day. You moved out. If you don't come back with me, Orion will definitely divorce me. Sister-in-law, will you come back with me? Please. Cinder's crying soon attracted a crowd of onlookers. I looked at Cinder quietly. I knew that she failed to scheme against me last time and now wanted to use the same trick again. She must think that once I was defiled by Orion, I would let them do whatever they wanted. In the book, they did succeed. And this time, they must have made full preparations to keep me here. Even get my regular employment quota. I stared at Cinder for a while. Since she wants to court death, I'll grant her wish. I pretended to be moved by Cinder's sincerity, and agreed to go back and stay for one night today. Although I only said one night, Cinder left satisfied. In her plan. As long as I was willing to go back. Even if it was just for one night. They could carry out their plan. One night. That's enough. I looked at Cinder, who left satisfied. And sneered. After getting off work at the factory in the afternoon, I followed the crowd out of the factory. And I bought half a caddy of pig ears and braised pork slices at the braised food stall on the street corner. The door of the house was open. As soon as Cinder saw me coming back, she greeted me warmly. Sister-in-law. You're back. Look. Why are you being so polite? I've already cooked the meal at home. Why did you still go and buy something? I went to the kitchen and took 2 sets of chopsticks and bowls. I put the 2 dishes I brought back on plates respectively, and then brought them out to the dining room. Sister-in-law. Orion called out when he saw me. But there was an inexplicable light in his eyes. In the past few days, because of the incident of climbing out of the pigsty naked that day, he had been laughed at by the villagers in various ways. Even some older aunts would look at his lower body meaningfully when they saw him. Orion had hardly gone out in the past few days. So Orion actually hated me a bit. He thought that if I hadn't brought people back that day, he wouldn't have lost face in front of so many people. I ignored the 2 people with their own thoughts and pointed to the dishes on the plate and said, You used to love the pig ears from this stall on the street corner the most. Try them and see if they still taste the same? Orion never thought that I would put something in it. So he smiled and picked up a chopstick full. Cinder liked the other dish of braised meat. She also picked up a big chopstick full of braised meat and stuffed it into her mouth without being outdone. It's delicious. Sister-in-law. You eat too. I smiled. I didn't dare to eat. I had added a lot of ingredients to these dishes. Even if you took just a bite, not to mention a person, even a cow would collapse. Just as I thought of this, I heard 2 thuds. And the 2 of them fell directly onto the table. I looked at them coldly, went back to the kitchen to cook my own meal, and ate it slowly. It wasn't until night that I put the 2 of them on the bed and left. But the door behind me was wide open. The tungsten filament light bulb flickered on and off outside the courtyard gate. That night, I slept soundly. But the next day, I was taken away by the police again. Of course, I wasn't taken to the police station. I was taken to the hospital instead. They said that a group of fugitive outlaws broke into Orion's house yesterday. Cinder was raped and killed. And Orion not only had his private parts cut off but also was covered in injuries and was still in a coma now. I looked at the bullet comments that had completely disappeared in the air and smiled. In fact, since I changed the plot, the bullet comments had been getting fewer and fewer. The last bullet comment I saw was on the day when Cinder went to the factory and made a scene, asking me to go back. The last bullet comment said, "Oh, little sister, don't go back. I remember it was said in the book that a group of outlaws will flee to your place today. Those people kill without batting an eye. Don't go out for sure. And it was after seeing that bullet comment that I agreed to go back. I'm really a kind person. Now that they're dead, that group of outlaws naturally won't harm other people. I stayed in the hospital with a solemn expression for 3 days. The doctor told me that Orion's injuries were too severe and asked me to go in and take a look. The medical instruments in the ward had been put away. Orion had a pale face and lay on the bed like a log. I came to the bedside. When Orion saw me, his mouth opened as if he wanted to say something. I leaned in closer and whispered, "Do you know that I deliberately left the door open?" Orion trembled and stared at me fiercely. I let out a sigh. You still don't know, do you? Your wife. That is. Cinder. She's dead. TSK. It's really pitiful. There's not a single piece of an injured flesh on her body. By the way, the police said that you were tied up by that group of people and watched how they. It's really pitiful. But don't worry and go in peace. I will take good care of the house and the land at home. Even if I get married in the future, I will take these things with me. I will definitely not let them go to waste. And I won't. Before I could finish, I saw Orion breathing rapidly with his eyes wide open. I quickly called the doctor in. A group of doctors and nurses started the rescue work. I was pushed back by the crowd. Step by step, I retreated. Extra story, Orion. When did I realize that I had different feelings for my sister-in-law? It should be when I was 17 years old. I came back at noon that day, thinking that there was no one at home. I was going to the kitchen to make lunch and wait for my sister-in-law to come back and eat. But unexpectedly, when I passed by my sister-in-law's door, I saw a shadow moving. I instinctively lightened my steps. Through the crack of the door, I saw that my sister-in-law was changing clothes. That was the first time I saw her in a different way. After that, the image of her on that day often flashed through my mind. Later, she wanted to arrange a blind date for me. I once heard someone persuade my sister-in-law to find a good family quickly, but she said that she would wait until I got married. At that time, I was panicked. I thought, if I got married, would my sister-in-law leave? I didn't want her to leave. I didn't want her to get married even more. However, I had to get married sooner or later. I was already 19 years old. With a man and a woman living alone in the house, there began to be gossip around us. When my sister-in-law arranged another blind date for me, I agreed. At the same time, in order to keep my sister-in-law, I came up with a wicked plan. I asked Cinder if she wanted a good job. Of course she did. Her family favored boys over girls. And marrying into my family was almost like jumping out of the frying pan. So, I told her my plan. At first, Cinder didn't agree and slapped me hard. But just one day later, she came to me again. She said she could cooperate with me. However, she also made me promise that I would never touch my sister-in-law from then on. And that she wanted to keep my sister-in-law under her thumb for the rest of her life. In order to keep my sister-in-law, I agreed. Originally, I thought everything was perfect. But who knew that I actually got her pregnant that time? But this matter caused a big stir. And my sister-in-law moved away. I really wasn't used to it those days. After Cinder came back, she couldn't swallow her anger either. We used another trick to deceive my sister-in-law back. I originally thought that on this day, we would all achieve our wishes. But when I woke up again, I was tied up. I was even forced to watch how they bullied Cinder. Before that group of people left in the end, they even crippled my. With a sneer. When I woke up again, I was already in the hospital. I knew that I wouldn't be able to survive. But I still wanted to see my sister-in-law again. I wanted to tell her that I was sorry. That I had tried to do her harm several times. Although I didn't succeed. But I was really glad that she had already left on the day the gangsters broke in. However, she told me that she was the one who let the gangsters in. My world collapsed. I didn't know why she treated me like this. I still wanted to ask. But it seemed that I didn't have the chance anymore. The end.